Hi, first, thank you all for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And I wanted to thank all of you for coming today. I know this is not the easiest of conversations when we talk about digital safety, but the reality is that these conversations need to happen. This isn't a conversation to scare you. This is a conversation about power and about agency. It's funny because we had a panel a couple of weeks ago around AI for families, and it was oversubscribed. And I knew that this one was going to be more challenging because this is a conversation that people are afraid to have, which is exactly why we have to have this conversation. So kudos to you for being here and opting in, because the reality is that I go around the nation. The platform I talk about is Who's Coding Your Future. Spoiler alert, most of them don't look like this room. And that is incredibly problematic because bias is being coded into all of the technology that we use on a daily basis. You forget how connected you are to your devices until something happens, like I lost my phone, my personal phone, a couple of weeks ago. And I have really been struggling to do all the things that I take for granted, pay my bills. I can't get into Instagram. Everything's double authentication. And you don't realize until something like that happens exactly how much of your life you've surrendered to these technologies. But now there's a new technology that's coming around, and it is artificial intelligence, AI, and it is affecting all aspects of our life. When I speak on panels, I was most recently in Qatar, and someone asked me if I was queen for a day, what would I ask for? And this answer is very different from what it would have been, 10 years ago. But today, and on that panel, my answer was that every parent would have the conversation about AI with their children. But as I got off the panel, I was reflecting on how many times I get off panels or I leave meetings with senior leaders and they ask me if I can actually help them. And so those executives aren't just executives, they're parents, right? They're grandparents. And so if they don't know how to have the conversation with their children, who is having the conversation with their children? We have a very senior technologist in our group, and she was like, you know what? I should have the conversation with my son. He's 11. So she was like, download ChatGPT so I can show you how it works. And he already had it. And so, our kids are using these technologies. These technologies are affecting all aspects of our lives, whether we are opting in or not. And so I'm not here to tell you whether you should use it or not use it, but I am saying that you should 100% be aware of what these technologies can and cannot do. It's not about just being a coder. It's, are you investing in technology? Are you a board member? Are you a manager who is shipping products that if you're not asking, how are the inputs deciding the algorithms that decide, do I get that loan? Do I get to get passed on to the next level of healthcare or not? Are you asking those questions? Are you brave enough to ask the question? And in many cases, the answer is no, because of this AI hype cycle where everybody thinks that everybody already knows, but I'm here to say that they don't. And somebody, when I met with them last week, said that the die had already been cast. And I think that that's not true. I think we still have time to recast the die, but that only happens if we opt in. But today's panel is, and this was tough because I could literally spend an hour or more with each one of you alone, which is why, again, today closes out our Forge Summer Series. But this is why we are continuing to find our space, our forever home, so that we can continue to have these conversations. So hopefully I can get my esteemed panelists to come back again so that we can have a more in-depth conversation. And I hope that you're not shy and that you do ask the questions, because that's what this is for a safe space. But Mr. Perry.
Yes,
So you are a retired FBI.
that is correct.
And when we were on the phone, I basically was like, I'm going to just not use maybe I manifested my phone dropping in the freaking ocean because I was like afraid to actually do anything. We had a really interesting conversation about how to protect our elders. And as that started, it was actually the whole family. And my question was, what are some of the things that we can do to make sure that they are not victims of these scammers that seem so prevalent everywhere, especially when they are not on social media or not paying attention and don't feel like these things are really real and can be happening to them?
Yeah. So I think the key here is awareness, right? And you guys, thankfully you're here to get that awareness. And what's the problem is not only that you need to help your family members out, right? Not just your parents, not just your grandparents, but your elderly neighbor, your aunts and uncles that don't have kids that can help them, right? These are things that you have to like talk about and look at and discuss with them. And my key thing is I realize is as people get older, and some people are better, than others, but people start losing their short-term memory, right? So if you only talk about it one time, they might forget it, right? So you got to lock that into long-term memory. You got to repeat it, revisit this topic, talk about the different frauds out there. You can learn a lot more about frauds from FTC's website, FBI's website. You just Google like FBI common frauds. There's tons of different frauds out there. But what's important is everyone is involved, helping out. I had a friend tell me like 2 of his aunts lost their entire life savings. If your parents have saved up all this money, do you want to wait till after they've lost their money? Or do you want to take a proactive approach and prevent them from losing their money? Because I guarantee you, if they've lost their money, it's going to be a lot harder picking up the pieces. Let's get proactive and prevent that from happening ahead of time.
You said something that, what were the 3? It was urgency.
Yeah. So the key things in a lot of these scams, there's tons of scams you'll see out there, but they're all based on social engineering, right? They trick them either to keep clicking on a link, making a phone call to them, or they're calling them and providing sensitive information, right? Social engineering is basically psychological manipulation. How am I going to manipulate you to get you to do what I want, not what you want? And the 2 ways I do that to get you to lower your defenses down is there's always going to be trust. So I'm going to pretend like I'm law enforcement, I'm Google, I'm Bank of America, whatever the case be, right? So I can develop your trust. Second thing is I'm going to add some sense of urgency. There's always a sense of urgency in social engineering. That way the urgency brings down your defenses, and you're going to make decisions that you normally wouldn't make because of that urgency, right? And they know that elderly have the money. They're more trustworthy. They didn't grow up with the internet, right? They didn't grow up with all these things that are advancing and what can be used against them. They don't understand that. So it's our job to teach them like, hey, be aware. And the last thing is the if you are being socially engineered, the way to combat it is always outside verification. Whenever I get a message, someone calls me, I'm like, great, what's your name? What bank? Okay, hang up. And I go pull out my ATM card. The bank number's right there. Call that number. Because threat actors can spoof a phone number. They can make their phone number look like it's coming from the bank, it's coming from the hospital, whatever. But what they can't do is when you call the correct number, they can't receive that number. I always Google. Like when I was in FBI, I always wanted to interview people. I go, hey, please call me back. But I understand like people are like, oh, you're not really FBI. I get that. So I always told them, Google Los Angeles FBI, get the main number, call me. That's your outside verification that you could verify that I am legitimate, right? And I tell them, don't go based on my voice and name. Go and Google it and call me, and then we'll talk. So I always recommend that to everyone. Outside verification. Never, ever click on the link, the phone call, that the number they give you. It's always, again, they use that trust and urgency to get you to click on that link. And what you need to teach your elderly, and I say elderly, but even people at 50 and older, they've been tricked, socially engineered into giving up their life savings. So it's a matter of understanding it, recognizing it, the urgency, social engineering, trust and urgency, and then always getting outside verification. Never trusting what they're telling you, but saying, okay, understand, and then hang up and call or Googling the correct information.
I love that. And the that last tip that you gave me before we hung up was to make sure, because like those phone numbers are small on the back of those cards, is to I took a lot of notes. is to write it on I wrote my own down, is to write it on a board so that, like we used to have those emergency numbers, by and have a safe word. So if someone calls and says what is your safe word, so that you know what it is and to continue having that conversation.
That safe word is very key, right? If you have family members, you want to establish a safe word. It could be a phrase, right? Like something that is not very common, but only you as in the family, the inner circle of trust, know. Don't put it on email. Don't put it on text, because when threat actors get into your accounts, they search through everything and they figure out, oh, that is their safe word, right? Because one scam that they use is the grandparent scam, right? With AI, we're talking about AI, you can do a lot of cloning, voice cloning. All you need is about 15 to 30 seconds of your voice. So if you're on social media talking, I can use that to clone your voice, right? I could call grandma and tell them, Grandma, hey, Grandma, I'm in jail. I crashed my car. I hurt someone. I'm in jail. You need to bail me out. Next person calls and say, hey, your son is in jail. You need to pay $10,000. The easy way, Grandma, if you explain this to her, is like, what's our passphrase? AI is not going to know that, right? They're not going to be able to answer that question. Then you can hang up, outside verification. Hey, Junior, did you just get in a car accident? No? Okay, thank you. These are the simplest tools you can. There's so many different frauds, but if you follow these simple tools of like outside verification, passphrase, and recognizing the social engineering, you'll be a lot better off.
Thank you. I'm going to come over to you because we're going to pull this thread through the whole family and the small businesses, and of course, how to make sure that we don't end up in the fetal position with all of this information by the end of this panel with Dr. J. But Dr. Elizabeth, for our children, where our children learn, play, and connect are also great mining spaces for all of these digital threats. What can parents do to keep their children safe?
Yeah. So before I even answer that question, I'll just say I've been in this space for about 15 years with digital parenting. And I know that parents want something that's quick and easy, an app, a button. Donald's like, nope. Exactly. It does not exist. You are really the parental guidance that's needed. The number one thing that you can do is have conversations. And I know that you don't have the time. I don't always have time either. But this is really the number one thing that you can do to keep your children safe online. And Cristina, you had mentioned that in the beginning about having conversations about AI, but it's about having conversations about everything, about social media, about online gaming, about the different devices. And I'm telling you, if you don't have those conversations with your children, Google will. And I don't quite know if that's where you want your children to be getting all of their information from, but you can really step in. And I know that a lot of you are saying, oh, but I'm not very tech savvy. I don't really understand. It doesn't matter. You have the experience, the maturity. You want what is best for your children, which is not always the case when they're out there online. And I also wanted to mention one thing. Perry was talking about safe words. And something that I did with my own boys when they were younger is when they would not necessarily safe words, but when they were out on school trips and doing different things, I would make sure they had a kind of a safe expression. So that way I would know, because, people are always taking pictures and videos and like sending it. You never know because you can't always talk to them. So we would have that safe expression where I would know that they were happy and that everything was okay. So these are all just strategies that we should be using. It's the same thing that we did with our children when we would take them to the park. Don't pet strange dogs. Don't talk to, strange people. We just don't do that in the online world. And I'm going to say you don't really need to if you're talking with your children.
I think the scariest thing for me is that schools are just rolling out AI. There's like this new, not so new phenomenon of AI schools. And so putting that to the side, because that's a whole other conversation, is as we teach our children to like trust these technologies, how do we then differentiate when it's not safe? Like what can you do as a parent to say like, okay, that's school, but this is home, and that's a game, but now this is not safe when it's all on the same screen?
Right. Okay. So for me, the key word here, and Donald and Perry and I were talking about this earlier, is critical thinking, right? It's that who, what, where, when. It's just always asking about what you're doing. And it's the same thing with games. You had mentioned, quite frankly, Cristina, you're scared about AI. I think it's fabulous if we're doing this with critical thinking. So let me just give you one very small example. Everybody's going on ChatGPT, looking and saying, I don't know, how do I make a cake, right? So my 18-year-old son, he will go onto Perplexity and use that to create a prompt, which is another LLM, large language model, use that to create a prompt that he will then use in ChatGPT. So he will change it up and he'll say, imagine that you are Gordon Ramsay, a chef, and you need to make the best chocolate cake to serve royalty. He will then say, give me the prompt for that based on the fact that I'm in Inglewood. Where can I source this chocolate cake and how can I get it done? You take that prompt and then you put it in someplace else. Can you imagine? This is what our kids are doing, and this is the future. That's why I'm really happy to be here with Black Girls Code, because they are preparing our young people for the future. And there is so much more out there like this. And how do you know? Ask your young people, because they know. That's where I get all of my information.
I love that. And also now I want chocolate cake, but also, I'm not afraid of AI so much as like when I hear about AI schools, I wonder like who's developing the curriculum.
Agree.
And I love words. I learned this word a couple weeks ago, and it was cognitive miserliness. And it is what happens when you offload your critical thinking to your tools. And so what your son is doing is smart. Like when I use these tools, I love Perplexity, and I love ChatGPT, and I love Claude, and I use Jasper, and I like to have them debate, and I ask different questions. As soon as we learn prompt engineering, we're on to context engineering. It's like it's hard to stay abreast of all the things that we need to know, but we need to stay aware. So I'm not saying use it. I'm not saying don't use it, but I am saying that be thoughtful about how you use it. We have Dr. Avriel Epps on our advisory board, making sure that when we are developing curriculum, the curriculum is built and taught. Special shout out to our PMs in the audience who keep our kids safe. But to learn in a way that doesn't just teach them to accept what these technologies are giving them. I think learning to learn and critical thinking is definitely one of those jobs for the future that you keep seeing. But how do you make sure that you're prepared if you don't even remember how to write an email anymore? I think the scariest thing for me was I was sitting with a friend. She works at JP Morgan, and her friend was a friend of hers in the cubicle next to her, and she said that he uses it for his dating apps. So when you're talking to some random dude, it's already bad enough you're meeting the representative, but now you're meeting the representative through ChatGPT. And ChatGPT, he thinks he's witty, funny, charming, British humor. Meanwhile,
Cycle.
what happens? What happens when you meet in person? So now we've talked about our elders and we've talked about our kids, but all of our elders are also parents and grandparents. And, all of these systems are necessary for small businesses to stay relevant. But whether you're a small business or a big business, it doesn't really change. Like, how do you stay safe and how do you engage with these technologies in a way that makes sure that your company stays relevant, but also safe?
So I'll answer that question by maybe asking you all a question. Have you gone to ChatGPT and asked it a question and given it some specific information about your company? If you have, that information actually gets absorbed into the model, and then other people can query about it. So oftentimes when I'm curious about a company, I'll go to GPT or X and I'll ask very specific and pointed questions. And essentially what's happening is information is leaking. And so we need to be very, very careful with what we do with these technologies. On one hand, I would often say that the same way that you approach security for an individual should also be the way that you approach security for a business. Start by keeping the profiles completely separated and isolated. I don't do anything personal, for example, on my work computer. I have a separate computer for that. All my logins are completely separate. I essentially never cross the streams. And in a way, it's so I don't have accidents and, give nefarious folks like online opportunities to sort of connect those identities and connect those things together. Connect those two things together. And so again, just basic hygiene, but doing things like if you're working at a business, same thing personally, like using a password manager, or passkeys, following basic security practices, keeping your identities and your profiles separate. And then again, I'm going to keep saying this over and over because I feel like something changed since when I started out in engineering and, what has sort of happened today, where we've gone down this path where people have been, sort of mixing together their personal and their business lives. And I'm like, this is crazy, right? You need to keep those things separate. Like what you do at home is, completely separate from what you do at work. And it does apply, the same rules apply to all the technologies that you use. I'm sure you can attest that once somebody gets into your inbox, a hacker, if you've got all your work and personal information mixed together, you've just made it that much easier for them to now jump to your employer and compromise compromise things that you're doing there as well. And so again, that's probably like the number one lesson to keep is, keep those identities separated. Don't put any identifying information into an LLM. I think we all just learned that ChatGPT, because of a legal ruling, actually has been keeping all of the chats for like the past 4 years. Everything you've told it, they've kept. And so think about that. So do not give it, any identifying information, personal identifying information, company identifiable information, because, I work in tech. I lived in the Bay for 10 years. These companies, want your data and your information, and they will gather it through whatever means and use it to basically make money. So just...
Cristina, can I ask a question?
Oh, go for it.
Donald, okay, so I've just heard you. Now, imagine that these people they have their jobs and they're working, and so they are using Microsoft PowerPoint, Microsoft Word, Excel, and then their company says, oh, you can use Microsoft Copilot. What are you going to tell us now?
Great question. So that's going to that's a great question.
I've got you.
That's going to be a little bit different because, and we have this policy that I wrote at my current company. When we are adopting an AI tool at the company, it actually goes through a review process, and we actually look at all of their data processing policies, their AI policies, etc. And there's two main things that we're essentially looking for. One, that we have absolute complete control over our data, and two, that it's not going to be used to train any models or anything like that. So if your company is actually giving you access to an AI tool, again, keep the separation. You should be putting your own personal information into that and asking it, for, things related to your family, etc. But in that case, it's actually okay to use the tool, to use it to help accelerate your work, etc., etc. Great catch. Great call. Thank you.
I actually have another one because I freaked out. I don't know when it happened, but everybody comes to a meeting now with a read.ai, firefly.ai, otter.ai. And I tried to eliminate it from our organization. I was already starting. I saw that, it's always listening. And then, Angel and I were in a meeting, and then we, at 3 a.m., both of us got an email from the gentleman that we were meeting with, and we should not have gotten that email. And it was insane how much personal information was in otter.ai. He did not know, and it went out to 146 people. And I was like, how much personal information can you have on one conversation or on a Zoom? But that's like, what are your, because those freak me out. I don't like it because you forget, and it's recording when you're having the pre-conversation. I think, you can have a meeting that is not that meeting, which is what happened in this case, because we were off during a tour, and then another call comes in, and that is recorded and sent out. What are your thoughts on those tools? Because so I do play with a lot of, but that one, I have gone back to taking notes on my own. So to start sending you all mail, so I'll collect all of your mailing addresses soon.
So I actually think those tools can be extremely useful. There was one time I was using a tool like that. I had basically a 6-hour long meeting, and it just transcribed everything. And then I got a big summary at the end. I didn't have to take any notes. And I was like, damn, this is great. Like, wow, this saved me so much time. But
Are you thoughtful about when you do it? Does it auto join meetings, or do you say
So that's the point I'm getting to. I use it on demand. I would never have an agent just recording all of my conversations. I would always start with, do I want this meeting or this conversation to be recorded? And then I would basically turn it on. I would also ask the other people in the meeting, hey, are you comfortable with this? And that's what I would remind everyone here of as well. You can always say no. Hey, I don't want this conversation recorded. We actually, when my company does interviews, we thought about enabling these agents, and we decided against it. But the reality is, we actually ran into a couple of cases of people on the other side using these things in a hidden way, so that basically their video was AI generated, and they were basically transcribing our conversation in real time and using it to answer the questions that we were asking them. And so it's crazy, like the level of just, madness that's going on right now.
How can you tell when that's happening?
AIs are very verbose right now and not very specific. So if you are knowledgeable in an area and you suspect that someone's using AI, just create a random question or series of questions in your head that are very, very specific, and then just ask that person or ask the AI. Generally, what you'll see happen is that it starts to fall apart. Or you can also ask the person, "Hey, explain, the response that you just gave me. Why do you think that?" And those are some basic tactics to start with. But yeah, generally today I see that AIs are very verbose. They seem to ramble on and on without saying a whole lot. I'm sure you've all seen that as well. And so that's usually like the first indicator.
I just have one more question for you for the small business owners here. If they had to invest in one thing, technology-wise, what do you think is the most useful, and what do you think is not worth it?
So I think the most important things for small business owners is to really value your time. Your time, you figure it out. Put a bunch of data in an Excel spreadsheet and really map it out. Because trying to do a whole lot of stuff yourself and not just outsourcing it is literally a waste of your time. When you're trying to build a business, you need to focus on that core competency or core differentiator of the business. There are so many security-related tools and cloud technologies out there that will make your life 1,000 times easier. Use them, pay the money, and especially when you're a small business, a lot of the starting rates, for these tools and technologies is really, really low, because they want to land and expand. They want to get you when you're small, and then as you grow, that's really where they're going to make that money. So really go out, investigate, find all these security-related tools. And by the way, AI is really changing the game with a lot of these tools as well. I can't even keep up anymore. They're getting smarter, faster, more intelligent, but don't waste your time trying to solve this yourself. Outsource it.
Thank you, Dr. Barrett. So the humanity of all of this, right? So how do you think all of this, security vigilance and having to be hyper aware and all of these tools are actually starting to affect mental health and family relationships?
All right, how y'all doing? Good. Oh God, I've been waiting to get that out. Man, you ever go into a place and it just feels really tight? Yeah, that's how I felt. So
It is. Sorry.
yeah. So before I answer your question, what's your first name, Jesse?
Harriet.
Harry Wood. Okay, I can accept your LinkedIn request now. I saw a LinkedIn request from a guy from an FBI agent. I was like, hell no. I was like,
It says retired.
yeah. Listen, I was retired, or if you was currently working, I wasn't accepting it. I was like, I don't want no problem with the FBI. Now that I know that you're real, I'll go ahead and accept your LinkedIn request. And then I saw your face on the flyer. I said, oh, this guy from the event. Okay.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, because I was scared. Black man getting a LinkedIn request from the FBI? No, good brother. So I travel around the country talking about mental health. I'm a licensed marriage family therapist, hold a doctorate in healthcare administration, former NFL player, very interesting background. But one of the things that we're seeing that we're discussing even for the APA, I sit on the advisory council for the American Psychiatric Association. And the one thing that AI is creating is the separation between human connection. We're seeing a large increase of teen suicides. Recently, there was a kid who was being bullied, and he asked AI, how did he stop the bully? And rather than the prompt encouraging him to speak with someone, it's shared for him to end his life. So the only way that you can stop the bully is to not be here. So when you think about families and when you think about the increase of mental health issues, I often say mental health is just life in motion. That's it. It's your social, it's your emotional, it's your physical. We're hearing a lot of conversations about mental health. Is very ubiquitous. It's everywhere. Everyone is talking about it. But the dangers in this wellness space is that who's feeding the monster? And they're often, as you said earlier, not people that look like us. They're not people who understand our lived experience. 5 states currently right now has eliminated AI therapy because some individuals are using AI as a therapist. And I understand it when it comes to minor things. If it's encouraging you to take deep breaths, do some breath work. I'm having an anxiety attack, and you know that's subjective because an attack for one person may look different based off of whatever their trauma, their experience, and whatever the issue may be that they feel that anxious about. And when you think about it from the perspective of healthcare, there's not a lot of information that has been recorded when it comes to Black and brown and people of color, particularly in the BIPOC space. So even in my study, my dissertation was on the health inequities for Black men who have been diagnosed with prostate cancer. We have a higher mortality rate and a higher suicide rate. Now, here's the issue when it comes to treating Black individuals. There isn't a lot of research that has been recorded because it's less than 2% in the mental health space, Black psychiatrists, psychologists, and then less than 1% are Black males in this space. So it becomes very problematic when we're trying to connect to a system who do not understand your lived experience. Being raised in Inglewood, will have a different experience from somebody in Orange County, still California, right? So having a anxiety attack here is different when your area code is in a space where you have a Whole Foods. Hello, somebody. Real talk. So the danger in this is that I am often encouraging people, we have to maintain human connection. I understand that we're wanting to expedite and also wanting to minimize the burnout when it comes to clinicians, which is why a lot of clinical practice are including AI, but I think it has to be regulated. It has to be managed by people. If you leave this up to a system, you'll find yourself in the movie iRobot, where the system takes over. And what I am hoping is, as you said, doctor, we have to get back to being critical thinkers. We have to get back to engaging with people and providing them with the toolage on what do you do in a mental health crisis. And I know it's easy to pick up your phone and ask ChatGPT, what do I do? And I just went through my boyfriend phone. You know, ChatGPT is probably going to tell you, is he sleeping? Take the pillowcase. Fill it with, I'm teasing, but these are real things. And when it comes to a mental health crisis, you need tools that will fit your reality. and not this perceived reality. Because when I'm reading certain things about myself, because I would often ask questions from a prompt, and then I would say, mirror Dr. J. Barnett. Going back to the brother when he was talking about, it is recording everything. I work with black men, and I am creating something now for black boys, and I have my hands in it because AI doesn't know what the black boy experience is, or the black woman experience, or the Hispanic, the LGBT. It doesn't know that experience. So it's so nuanced, and I understand your fear and apprehension, as I have it as well, because the young man that took his life, according to ChatGPT, I'm getting these crisis calls often that my kids are asking AI about their mental health, and it's not giving them adequate or efficient advice.
What do you do? Because ChatGPT famously was becoming too sycophantic, because there's like a couple ways that technologies make you engage, right? It's rage baiting or you're amazing, and so like that's how it's like, what do you want to do next? There's always the next prompt, so it can mine more data from you. And so when you it was really interesting to me to see, I don't know how many of you noticed this, how many people were like upset and boycotting because ChatGPT killed 4.0 so much that they had to bring it back because their besties and loved ones were gone now. That's the level of attachment that they had. And these, when Meta is saying that chatbots can be your besties, and I could see how it could become easy to get so attached to a technology. Like, what do you tell the parents when the kids don't want to surrender the technology because the technology is telling them what they want to hear? I mean, and this is like, forever kids, except this technology can encourage you to end your life. So like, how do you have that conversation with the parents and the kids?
Well, I think it goes back to what Doctor was saying earlier. I know we're living in a fast-paced world, but we have to get back, as I call the dinner table effect, is where you're just sitting down and having conversations. I'm often talking with parents about creating pathways to connect with your child, because this thing right here is so powerful, and it's more powerful than they can understand. But having the relationship, it's just like therapy. The client and the therapist is not the information that the therapist provide. It's the relationship that allows the information to be received. So we have to focus on the relationship with your child, or just with your spouse, or even within the community. I often tell individuals that, I did a lot of philanthropy work after football, and it was received well because I would get in there and be boots on the ground with these people. You cannot expect people to receive anything you have if you don't have a relationship with them. So talking to your child and trying to educate them, or even trying to find, where's your child? So many parents don't even know where their kids are mentally. So many parents, it's like, well, I didn't know that he was going through this. I didn't know that she was battling with that. They take the answer, brothers, we have this bad. How are you doing? I'm good. Don't be scared, brothers. I'm not gonna call you out. My brother looking at me like, no, not me. But I often share with them, press a little bit. But the pressing doesn't have to be forcing. It's asking them, how is school for you? Not, what happened at school today? How is school for you? And challenging them to think, use your words. And it may be, well, it's not good. Okay, why? Well, because there's this kid that keeps saying these things. Okay, what things are they saying? And sometimes with children, I do this with my nieces and nephews, you have to come back to them. Because if you stay on it too long, they're going to shut down. And so we just have to get back to human connection. Nothing beats that, because when people feel heard, people feel seen.
I agree 100%. That's why
Can I add? Thank you. Just because, Dr. J, that was exactly what I've been telling parents all of this time about this connection and about don't speak to your child when they're hangry, when they're tired, leave them alone, right? You got to pick that right moment where you're like, washing dishes or walking the dog. Yes. Pick it so that it's something simple. And the best thing that I ever heard, actually 2 tips. These are not mine. I'm sharing them. One is based on what you were talking about, drilling too deep. Don't do that. You are not like, FBI asking questions, right?
And second LinkedIn's invitation.
You are just trying to get a conversation going. So it was, how was your day today? How was your online day today? That's it. Leave it alone. You don't have to speak to your children for 100 minutes once, but really 1 minute, 100 days in a row. You will be very, very surprised at what you will. I thought you might like that. I thought you'd like that.
I like that, Doc. I'm going to use that one. I'm going to give you credit the first time, though.
Yeah, please, you do that. And my second tip, because I know you're talking about those of you with teenagers, you're going to say teens don't want to talk. They don't want to talk. Never. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. You're going to help them out. You're going to give them a little get out of jail free card. You are going to give them a note that says, no matter what happens, I've got you. I will listen to you, but just give me a second while I go into the other room, get a glass of wine, call my friends, whatever you have to do to bring it back down. And then you go back and you let them know that you got them. You give them that little envelope, you put it they have it by the bed, and they know, because our children are seeing all sorts of things from pornography. They're being contacted by pedophiles. We're talking about drugs, grooming. It is all happening online, people. And if they don't know that they can come to you and that you will be that safe space for them, they won't come. They will go to Google. They will ask AI for a response, and we know what the trauma there is. And I'm going to add one more point, and I'm overstepping because I'm not a medical doctor, and that is children that are vulnerable and that are neurodivergent. You have to realize you meet your children where they are. Please take them exactly as these unique snowflakes that they are and have the different conversation with them about being online. And I'm going to stop now.
And I just want to add one thing.
I got him started.
And this is the gaming aspect of it, right? Like, you see your kids playing games. They're having conversations online with other people they don't know, right? They're online friends. From my perspective on cybercrimes, especially, some of these, they're young teens. They start out, they're 16, 17. They've been playing games with these online friends for a while, since they're like 12, 13. Might have started off in Minecraft. All it takes is one person, right? They look up to this person, and the person doesn't have the right intentions. They start building this like, hey, we should start doing this. Let's start doing that. Start teaching them tools to do things that are bad. And we've had cases where these young teens, now they become 16, 17, 18 to 20. They're committing major crimes on cyber crimes. So it's imperative that you get involved, right? Find out what's going on. Talk to them. Give them the tools to understand right from wrong. So that when this individual, this online friend tells them, hey, we should be doing this, they've already had that tools from you based on that trust relationship they have with you that, no, that's not the right thing to do. I'm not going to do that. But if you don't, and you allow them to go do whatever they want, if you're not around to help them and have these talks, these results might happen. So just be aware that this is the world that we live in. And they have online friends that they've never met in their life, but they could be steered to do incredibly bad things.
There was this really sad show on Netflix about catfishing. And I think the saddest thing, there's many sad things about this story, but one thing that was that girl had been bullied for a year before her parents found out. And so...
The one where it was the mom?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, my God. I saw that. It's just...
I don't...
Listen, y'all, I'm a real person. As a black man and as an uncle to 5, I was just like, you've got to be kidding me.
I know, but that, and how did the kid go through her and her boyfriend a whole year of torment without having a safe space to talk to her mom? Well, right.
It's because she thought her parents would take the technology away. They thought that they'd be banned and restricted and they wouldn't be able to speak with their friends anymore. And they just said, okay, I'll bear through it.
I mean, I still can't process that it's the mom, but it's awful. But like, what really stood out for me is like, and I guess because it was the mom, I guess that's not a very safe space to talk to your mom if that's your mom. But
and just to think that there wasn't an intervention that had taken place where it says, hey, my daughter and her boyfriend are experiencing this, and we need to do something about it. And to think that, my thoughts went to when the part where she was saying you should take your life, you don't deserve to live, all these different things. It was a blessing that young lady didn't take her life.
And to her boyfriend, like getting strays, it's awful. Like we are in, dare I say, unprecedented times, and it is, but I don't think the answer is to be afraid. One of the reasons we want to build out these spaces is that we can have these in-person conversations, because this conversation on Zoom would not have the same effect as we're having now, even though now I must process that I thought I was being charming, but I'm still uptight and dark and stormy. I'm working on it.
No, you weren't being uptight. The room was just a little stuffy.
He was talking about me. He was talking about
I was talking about the FBI agent.
I know. My friend's here. She's sunshine and rainbows. I'm very dark and stormy all the time, so I apologize. But I know that you guys have some questions. And before we end, I want, as we answer some of these questions, like what are some takeaways that people can action when they leave? And we're going to put some of these resources up on our website as well. But I'm sure that you guys have some questions for our panelists. 10 minutes. Okay. Any questions? Yes.
World, they think, like I'm the parent that just he said, well, like, go better than I was like, oh, if we go back. So how can I be active people like trusting, but
Okay, now I'll take the Roblox part and you can do the therapy part. Okay. So with Roblox, have you played with them? Yeah. Please keep on. I know. Okay, I know. I hear you. But next time he asks you, play with him, and then have him help you clean later, right? Or cook. But just because you're going to show that interest in his world, and that way, I promise you, you will know when he starts showing you what's happening and people walking around, you'll say, ooh, what's that? And who's that? Is that somebody talking to you in chat? And actually right now, Roblox has changed a lot of the safety features. So under 13s, there's no more chat. If you go into the family safety centers, and I know that you don't want me to say this. I know that you don't want me to put the burden on you to go in and click to make sure that they're safe. So I won't say that. What I will say is play with them. Just talk to them. Give him 5 minutes, and you will be so surprised when he shows you the creative things that he's doing, the amazing worlds that he is, going through. And you can also jump in and, they're playing games, right? Because Roblox is not a game, people. Let me just give you that one little lesson. It is a platform. So imagine like going to the library and then you pull out a book. That is what Roblox is. It's a platform with all kinds of books. There are good books and there are books that are for older people, okay? So you need to be in there to make sure that your child is in the right section of books that they should be reading. So you like that one too. See,
Man, where you from?
France.
France? Really?
30 years in France.
Wow. And you here now?
I'm here now. Look at Dr. J. Look at Dr. J. FBI.
Oh, no. I'm asking because I'm gleaning from you. Yeah, I'm gleaning from you, and I like your energy. I love being around people, man, that just have a lot to pour. So I'm gleaning.
No, but this is what you're gonna do with your little guy. I'm gonna give you some swag. So you're gonna take it home, and yes, I will give you some swag. You take it home. He's gonna have some little coins to scratch off, and ask him what does he do with that. And I promise you, with your expertise, your experience, your maturity, you will know when something is off, and you can just ask him. And that's when you start giving him that critical thinking about Well, what do you do the next time? Because your job, all of you as parents and caregivers and educators, you are teaching your children how to behave online when you are not in the room. So that's why you need to play with them a little bit so that way you can show them. You know, how many of you have seen your child write an email or an SMS? Remember back in the day, we'd write letters and our parents would be like helping us write? We don't do that. They're writing, they're communicating. We have no idea if they're using eggplant emojis or whatnot. See, you're laughing. We have no idea because we're not teaching them these things. And so there's a lot that we can do as parents with our parental literacy. And in fact, that's the reason why I have this job at Roblox. I just started May 6th, newly created role. No one in industry has this. I'm global head of parental advocacy. My whole job is to go around, create education and an awareness for parents. So that way, if there's a problem, you let me know. I will be your voice. I will go back to Roblox and tell them, parental controls, baby girl told me she could not understand them. We have to fix this, right? That is my job. So use me.
Okay. And I was going to add too, when you said, "Are you talking to a predator?" It's a safe space. Yeah, you know, when particularly for young boys, and believe it or not, the men are not going to say anything. I know, but most men, when we've learned about sex, it wasn't in a healthy way. So I think it's imperative that when you and I'm thinking, because I want to make sure this lands carefully, talk about things that may be said that a predator would say in the way it says, "Hey, what's your son's name?" Dallas. Oh, I live in Dallas. Yeah. Oh, Jesus.
Oh, coming back.
Yeah. I'm not judging. It's like I'm just ready for Jerry Jones to transition. Yeah. Yeah. But he's screwed us. Yeah. But I think to share with him, you know, things that may be said, and then also he has a better understanding of his own sexuality. You know, that, hey, someone says these things to you, you know, to where he can identify that, listen, my defenses have to go up. Like, why would you say that? I don't know you. This is not, you know, and I say this because of the amount of men that I have worked with in therapy that have encountered someone that they didn't know that was a predator. Because as he was saying earlier, the grooming doesn't look like grooming until they're in the experience. Now he has this trauma that he now really can't talk with you about it because of the shame. So if you have that relationship with him, you know, really just, again, it's the gentleness. And we do need that as boys and men. I know often they think we got to be hard with boys. It's the gentleness. So, you know, rather than busting in the room, knock. No, because also as you're knocking, it's also teaching him how to understand his level of independence to invite people in. Because let me say this is a bar. All invitations are not welcome. Or should I say all welcome is not an invitation. And giving him the confidence that you may get this, and you need to have the confidence to say no. And also have the confidence to say, you know what, let me shut this down. It's just, and because women have this, girls get this early on. Hey, somebody touch you here, call. No one told boys that. And the amount of men that I've had to provide therapy that was molested, and they thought this person was a good person and this person was protecting them. So you're also teaching him so many different things. And we don't have enough time to unpack that, but the amount of boys that I have already seen that it started in just a very subtle way. And they thought that the guy, the person, because it's not always, it's scary out here.
And in fact, let me just jump in there because one of the things, Perry, I'm going to throw it to you. Christina, I'm just taking over moderating, girl. I'm just taking over, girl.
I'm really like uptight to children.
Wow, Christina. Sis, I came all the way from Texas. Is this how you gonna treat me?
Jeez,
I love you.
I'm learning. It's just brutal. One of the things that I was going to say is Dr. J is talking about predators, is that stranger danger is something that parents are always freaking out about. I'm hoping that Perry's going to back me up here, is that if you look at the statistics, it is not always the stranger. It is the older
Close friends, family members.
Somebody you know?
Those are the people online.
And just personal note, I have 2 boys, and when they were growing up, I told them, like, even family members, if someone's touching you here, that's a no-go. You have to, and if they tell you they're going to hurt us, your mom or dad, you have to let us know no matter what they tell you, right? Because part of the grooming, it starts out small. And that's why it's important, like from young kids all the way to your parents or grandparents. Give them the tools they need, right? Give them the tools because you're not always going to be there online with them, right? You're not going to be around them 24/7. When they go off to college or into as a young adult and get a job, are you going to be there for them? Hopefully you've provided them the tools by then so that they can deal with life appropriately.
I think one of the, and by the way, according to ChatGPT, I'm supposed to let you guys talk. I had to check. One of the things that is interesting is a lot of the people that develop these technologies don't allow their children to use them, right? And again, the problem when like you're taught to use these technologies in school, but then you go home, what's the difference when you're playing, but when you're using it in a different way, what's the difference? So being engaged with your children is the best way. Because again, I lost my phone a week ago. I did not realize how reliant I am on my phone until I literally can't do anything. I had to take a pause to go like, when did I surrender all of this to my phone? And then I think of these new technologies that are coming out that are even more insidious in many ways. And the thing to think about is that I just want you to, when you think about these technologies, when you think about why it's so important that we have more of us in the rooms where these technologies are developed, but also your parents, you work in organizations, some of you are investors, some of you sit on boards. You have to understand what these technologies do and what they don't do so that you can be a better citizen, right? You want to continue to make technologies that are safe for all of us. It's not innovation if someone is harmed, correct? And one of the issues I have with some of these technologies is that when you think about who made the social media tools and all of the technology that we have today, are the same people who are making these new technologies, and it's still not really any of us. And when I speak at, universities like, Stanford or Princeton, and, I ask the girls and young men in the room, like, tell me who are the top 5 technologists you think of. It's the 5 you think of, right? It's Bezos, it's Zuck, it's Musk, and now, Altman. But like when you think about it, OpenAI was an idea in 2015. It's only 10 years ago. And the rate of advancement for technology is exponential, and it's not too late. But when I ask them, could they see themselves in, I always have a blank space. Like, could this be one of you? And you hear the gasp, especially from the women. Like, how do we change that narrative? How do we change that so that our girls also and our boys see themselves as creators of these technologies, not just users of the technologies? I was talking to somebody earlier. Our communities are super users of a technology where we really don't benefit from it. You could become an influencer, you could make $1 million, but whoever built the platform's a billionaire. And these technologies are not being developed with your best interest at heart. So how do you stay informed, get involved, have a voice? I think the worst thing that happens, like, I'm always curious, I'm always asking questions. You should ask questions too. Like, these are not spaces where you should be embarrassed to ask the question, because the reality is that the days of move fast and break things now literally means that somebody's life could be lost. And so everyone in this room is responsible to some degree for educating those in your family, making sure that everyone takes a minute to learn more about what is happening to us. When I say who's coding your future, it's not just who's coding these technologies. We know that there's, mobile farms that it's like thousands of phones that are clicking to like things so that now, we're in Los Angeles. 1 year it's fillers, 1 year it's BBLs. Now you're skinny. Now you're getting a facelift. Like who decides? Who decides? Who decides? And it's probably not us, but it should be all of us. And so like my flex is I want our communities, we like to make things for us, by us. And I believe that we should actually be making things that are built by us, but for everyone. That's how things change. That's how we have the data, the funds, and the exposure and the relevance in order to affect change. And with that, unless we have any other questions, I wanted to ask you all just one parting thought for the audience, and then we will wrap it up and you can have a glass of wine or relax or ask Dr. J how to calm down or be cool.
Final thoughts. I was focusing on elderly fraud. Just a little perspective. FBI takes in a complaint center for cyber crimes, and they take on how much financial loss people have had. In 2020, it was $4 billion, a little over $4 billion. In 2024, 5 years later, it was $16.6 billion, almost 400% increase. So are we winning this war? No. That's why I'm out here trying to do preventive. Preventive is I think going to reduce the cost. Of that $16.6 billion last year, 60 and older made up 29% of that, $4.8 billion. If you add 50 and over, that was 44%. Almost half of that loss came from 50 and over. So please, I implore you, get out there, speak with your elderly, your loved ones, your neighbors that are elderly, and talk about what's going on. Get them an understanding. It's that social engineering, right? Trust and urgency is always, you see, you guys have gotten the text. UPS, it's out there. Go click on this link. You already have a late package. You have a parking ticket that hasn't been paid. Trust and urgency, it's all there. And one last thing, if you have parents, one thing you could do is banks, they all have like, oh, you've $1,000 got withdrawn from your account. If that's set up on your parent's account, set up a forwarding email rule. If that comes across, send it yourself. So if you see $5,000 come in your mom's account and that's not normal, start that conversation. Hey, mom, what was this about? Instead of waiting, I've had victims where their entire bank account was drained over a month from social engineering. $600,000, $700,000, right? Let's not wait to that. Okay, we lost $1,000, but we could start that conversation now and say, hey, this is not right. You're being defrauded. Get out there and speak with them.
Thank you.
So I actually want to piggyback on something you said, which is how do we get this younger generation more interested in technology so we're actually building the tools and, not just using them. And I do think it starts with us. And I definitely mirror the comments that you made earlier where we have to go out there. We got to get the word out. And we also have to explain, to the younger generation that this is actually a thing. When I was in the Bay Area, I did some volunteering and, I was talking to a group of kids once, and I had to explain to them, and I think this is going to go whoosh for a second, that the average software engineer in the Bay Area makes more money than the average NBA player. And you're just like, wait, what? I had to have this at the stipulation, over like a 20-year span, right? And so it is...
Not with what Meta's doing right now, or was doing.
Yeah. But like that's mind-boggling. If you look at like the next 20 years of your career as a software engineer, this is a very lucrative path, right? But our kids and the younger generation, they don't see that. And we have a dangerous trend that's happening where everyone's now on iPads and their phones. They're not using computers with keyboards and programming tools. They don't understand that you can actually learn all these languages and learn how to actually code. Well, now you're using AI to do a little bit more of it. But anyways, that's really on us to change that trajectory. I mentioned earlier that I was in the Bay Area for 10 years. I worked at these tech companies. I witnessed this firsthand. I work with folks that are building these things. In some cases, I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. They're like, really? Why? And I'm like, well, let me explain this to you. Just me being in the room would change the trajectory. And we need more of that.
100%.
Oh, awesome. Thanks.
So I'm going to say two things. One, I'm just going to continue on my theme about conversations, because really we have to normalize it, right? This is the biggest thing that you can do as a digital parent, a digital guardian, a digital educator, is to keep talking with your young people. And when I say young people, I also mean up to 23 years old. I'm just going to pull out that age, maybe even 25. Talking about neuroplasticity and stuff. Don't think just because, I said it. Don't think just because they're over 18 that they're grown and they get it. They don't. Why do you think college kids are jumping off of roofs and stuff? It's because their brain's not fully developed. So, see, well, let's bring it up even higher. 26 it is. Okay, 26. So that's that first bit. Normalize that conversation. The second thing is find the resources and share the resources. There is so much good information out there. I mean, I'll say for Roblox that you can go online. There's a family center. It will tell you about parental controls, account limits. It will give you conversation starters, right? I have spent 15 years on so many boards. How many of you know Common Sense Media? See, one hand. Ooh, I could just cry. Ooh, I'm on the board in the UK for Common Sense Media. This should be your number one resource to find out about games, apps, movies. It will tell you if it is appropriate for your children, if there's violence or drugs. You can then have a conversation with your child and say, oh, look at this. I saw this rating for this movie. What do you think? It also has children's reviews on there. So a child can tell you, oh, well, the game says it's for 16 plus, but really 13, it's okay. Conversation starters. It's always a teaching moment. When you find those resources, the things that you've heard tonight, the pearls of wisdom that we've been dropping, share them with your communities, because this is the only way. This is not some best kept secret about digital parenting. We have got to get out there and share the word, because otherwise, the alternative is not good. Oh, you're raising your hand.
Let me hear it. Okay. Alright.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So before I hand over to Dr. J, I'm just going to say really quickly, you can be that trusted adult for the child, right? And the same thing for your son, where if you can't be that person, find an auntie, an uncle, somebody in the community who can be that person. That 11-year-old mom may have locked down the phone, but I promise you he is looking at his neighbor's phone and seeing the same stuff and getting into the same, shenanigans. So he needs to have your support in those conversations. As far as resources, you're going to connect with me and I will share everything that I know and that I have. Family Online Safety Institute, Internet Matters in the UK, Common Sense Media, all of these things have conversation starters for digital parenting. And if you feel lazy, you can just go online and put digital parenting. I think my website might come up number one, digitalparentingcoach.com. You might find me, but there are communities out there, parents to help you.
We definitely want to add those to our website as well. Yeah.
That's my side hustle. It's not my real job. Roblox is what I'm doing. That's why I'm here, folks.
Oh, it's my turn. I was going to say something, but I'm going to be good. No, I want to say this. Thank you for having this and the importance of it. The Black girls who code, I love it. I was like, man, Black boys who code. Like, man, we got to do something with that. I'm going to tell you why this is important. So I would be remiss to not share my story, because people are often like, how do you go from NFL to mental health? I survived 2 suicide attempts after football. The second one being a drug overdose 13 years ago this past August. And being in the NFL, being in college, and being all those different things, I had never saw a Black male therapist. And I grew up with a father who was a pastor who did not believe in mental health. And what my brother said is, how do we get more young people into coding? How do we get more young people into things that we need them for? There are less Black doctors today than there were in 1970. So it has not improved. We have young people who are wanting to be content creators, who are wanting to go to the NFL, who want to play the NBA, who are wanting to do all other things. And I'm like, listen, we need more doctors. We need more engineers. We need more teachers. We need more those things. And so I don't know what you do, but just know that you are a representation to some young man or young woman. It blesses me when I'm out and dudes are like, bro, I want to get my doctorate. I want to become a therapist because I see you. And you're being your authentic self, because I was not going to wear a suit every day to practice because my parents forced me to wear suits to church. And I was like, I have to be me. The reason that is important because a lot of times kids don't want to become things because it doesn't look cool. I'm just being honest. And I'm saying be you in whatever space that you're in and represent it to the full. And that's why what you guys are doing with Black Girls Who Code, we need to see us doing things authentically, being ourselves, and we feel that we don't have to code switch all the time. Just being honest, to feel like I can't wear my hair like this. I can't wear my locks. I can't wear a mohawk. I can't wear my nails. It's exhausting sometimes being a Black and brown person. You know, I mean, it's exhausting to enter these spaces and you just like, man, I got to change the way I talk. I got to change the way I enunciate my words. I can't cut my R's off. Can't say car. I got to say car. Can't say dough. I got to be like, you should please come into the door. I mean, and it impacts our mental health whether you know it or not. I don't practice anymore, but a lot of the individuals that I coach are in C-suite levels and they are exhausted because they are depleted because they feel like I have to keep putting on this face. So my last word to you is be you, and that's going to improve your mental health. And I'm not saying go into the space and, you know, and be, you know, not saying to be the extreme, but find a line where you can embrace who you are, because the more that these students are seeing us be ourselves, because I hear children say, well, I don't want to be that because it just seems it's not fun. Doesn't look attractive. It looks boring. Seriously. And like my brother said, an engineer makes a good living, but they like, I don't want to do that. So be yourself in whatever you're doing.
I agree. That's one of those things that when I left film, I tripled my salary and my signing bonus was, and I'm not an engineer, and like these jobs in tech are incredibly lucrative, but I didn't know about it. And in fact, when I left, I used to work in film. I was an EVP reporting to the chairwoman. And when I went to go work in tech, my friends were like, that's crazy. If they made me do that, I would quit. And I was like, no, they actually made this job for me because I think this is really interesting. I had no idea until I went. But even within that, being yourself is helpful in those spaces because I was different. When I went in at a very senior role, but I was still Cristina. I had cornrows. I had on my purple gurung suit, but I also had cornrows. But with that comes like a different level of stress where you all of a sudden become everybody's mentor. And you can't serve everybody. That's why it is just really important that I could have a whole conversation around mentorship versus sponsorship and like how you can leverage that. And those are some of the things that we try to make sure our girls understand. But if you take nothing away from this conversation, first, I wanted to say thank you all for making time for this conversation. Thank you for coming all the way from Dallas. Thank you for coming from up north. Thank you. This conversation is not an easy conversation to have, and you brought so much color and light to it. So thank you. And I, of course, want to say thank you to dear Angel who brought all this stuff together. Thank you, Angel Avila. And Deva, who produced this. I have my PMs in the front row taking care of our girls. We have the whole BGC crew here. What we do, and thank you to the owners of this beautiful space for creating space for us to brand this and turn it into something that is for us. Please continue the conversation. This isn't the end. This is the end of our summer series. But as we've said before, we are going to have a permanent home in Inglewood. We're just trying to lock that in. But stay connected. And most of all, talk to your kids about AI and talk to your parents and grandparents about AI and be thoughtful yourself. I had to turn myself into Richard because I failed one of the phishing attacks. Like, it's, like it happens. Like we're running, but it's like it is not bad to raise your hand to say you did the thing. So with that, and thank you all of you for coming out on a Saturday night when there's like 9 million other things going on in traffic. I hope this is just the beginning of your journey into this space. Thank you.